Good morning, folks. My name is Chris Brown. I'm the Assistant Library Director with the Pella Public Library. And this morning we're going to be talking about the Pella Community Memory Database, which is a new grant-funded initiative from the Pella Public Library and the Institute of Museum and Library Services that's designed to bring Pella's history out of back rooms and dusty closets and locked archives into the online world. So the purpose is to digitize Pella's historical materials and make them available online, make them searchable, and make them accessible to anyone with an internet connection. The easiest way to talk about this project is to use the 5 W's. So we're going to talk about the who, what, where, when, and why. To talk about the who, the people involved in this project are the Pella Public Library. We are the primary author of the grant and also the spearheading the grant. But in addition to us, the Pella Historical Society and Museums has graciously agreed to be our inaugural partner in this project. So this grant cycle runs for 2 years, and approximately the first year of the grant will be digitizing historical materials at the Pella Public Library, and then the second year is going to be digitizing historical materials at the Pella Historical Society and Museums. Now, obviously, the Pella Historical Society and Museums has far more materials than we will be able to digitize in a single year, but the idea is to get the groundwork laid, the foundation laid, so that people can see the value of this project, and this project can perpetuate after the 2-year grant cycle is complete. Additionally, we want to thank the Institute of Museum and Library Services, which is the federal funding arm of libraries and museums all over the United States. They are responsible for this grant program, which we'll talk a little bit more about in just a second. But they are the ones who provided this funding so that we were able to start this new project here in Pella. So more specifically, what this grant is about, this grant is a new type of grant under the program name Accelerating Promising Practices for Small Libraries. And what this is a new initiative from the Institute of Museum and Library Services, which is designed to provide smaller libraries with the funding that they need to bring their community's history into an online space. You often hear about large libraries, large library systems such as Los Angeles, New York doing these sorts of projects, but you don't often hear about small libraries doing these sorts of projects, and one of the major reasons is due to a lack of resources. So that's something that the IMLS is trying to address with this grant. The amount that they gave us specifically over 2 years was $29,116, and our particular grant does have a community memory focus, which means that we are focused on working with our community's history, our community's collective memory, and bringing that into an online space and making that available, helping people to be more in touch with that history and with that memory. So addressing where this project is going to be completed, the majority of the work is going to be completed at the Pella Public Library. The grant allowed us to purchase some digitization equipment, a couple of different types of scanners, and that is installed in one of our study rooms as a new digitization room. That provides us with a secure location where these materials can be digitized and handled consistently. In addition, we may do the occasional off-site work, but the vast majority of the work is going to be done at the Pella Public Library in our digitization room. The grant runs from September 1st, 2019 through August 31st, 2021, so exactly 2 years. And after that point, we're going to be looking at obtaining funding to continue this project going forward, because there is a per year cost, a subscription cost, to keep up the platform that these materials are hosted on. So we want to make sure that by August 31st, 2021, we have that funding secured and in place to keep this going forward. As of right now, this project is completely off budget from the Pella Public Library budget. The Pella Public Library is not providing any costs to this project, providing any funding to this project other than 5 hours a week of my salary to manage the project. They're not providing any funding to this. So what we want to do is try to get that funding in place by August 31st, 2021 to keep this project moving forward. So now to the big question, why are we doing this project? There's several different reasons that we're doing this project. The first one is to preserve. So we want to make sure that the history of Pella is preserved for the future. One of the risks you take with physical documents, it's excellent to have the original copies, don't get me wrong at all, but one of the risks you take with physical documents is that they may not be backed up anywhere. And unfortunately, we do live in a natural world and things do happen. Fire, flood, tornado, collapse, all these different things could cause the loss. Theft is another one. All of these things could cause the loss of those original documents. And if those original documents are lost, then the information contained in them is gone forever. No future generation will have access to that information if the originals are destroyed. So one of the things that the Pella Community Memory Database does is to preserve that history, make an important backup copy, so even if the originals are lost at some point, that information will not be lost to future generations. Additionally, it helps minimize the handling of the original documents. Obviously, many of these documents are over 100 years old. They are quite fragile, and so the less they have to be handled, the better. So if someone can view them online and get access to the same information as looking at the originals and get the information that they need, that's one less time that those originals have to be handled. The second reason we want to do this is to present history. So not only does the database preserve history, but it presents history in new and exciting ways to current generations and future generations that will be in Pella. So it's not simply that you're now sifting through a cardboard box full of materials. You have the ability to flip through these materials the same way, for example, that you might do a Google image search. You're able to search the descriptions of these materials. Oftentimes you're able to search within the document itself to find specific keywords that you're looking for in these documents. So it gives people a new and exciting way to interact with these documents, and it presents history in an exciting way that allows folks to really get enthusiastic about this. It's important in this electronic age to make sure that we are keeping up with the technology that allows us to best utilize these resources. Being able to search these documents is one way in which we can present history in a way that's going to be beneficial for future generations. Third why is to promote history. And I do want to point out here that when we put these materials online, you're not just looking at a couple of people within the city of Pella city limits using these documents. These documents will be available to researchers and interested parties on a regional, state, national, and even international level. Working at the Pella Public Library, I find it very interesting that on a bi-monthly basis, we have inquiries actually from the Netherlands asking about information on specific families, asking for information on Schulte, asking for all this historical information that we have available. And so this is an exciting way to be able to promote the history of Pella, to say, hey, Pella is here. When people look at this, they say, hey, Pella is a neat town. This is someplace I might want to go. This is someplace I might want to look at. This has a history. This place has a value. So we're promoting this history to all of the outside folks who might be looking at this, as well as promoting it to our own children, teens, and young adults to help them get interested in the history of their community as well. So this is just a more effective way to promote that history. And finally, one of the reasons we're doing this is to prompt history. So one of the things about having a system like this is that when people see this, they say to themselves, well, what do I have to contribute? they automatically view this as a collaborative project, and they say to themselves, what do I have to contribute? What might be sitting around in a file cabinet at my house that has to do with the history of Pella? What might I have up in an attic somewhere that might have to do with this history? And it prompts people to come forward with their own history. As we're slowly putting together this puzzle, more and more people are coming forward with their own pieces of that puzzle, some of which may be missing links. Depending on what you're researching, there may be a gap in your research, and people may be coming forward with that to present it and get it into this database. One of the stories that I like to tell, recently we had a gentleman from Canada who had contacted us and was interested in the history of his family, and we were able to say, hey, look at this new excellent online resource that we have. You can just go in there, search for your family's history. We have these documents digitized that are at the library. He was able to do that. He was astonished and amazed that we had this information online, and he was so motivated by that he actually sent us a copy of the family history that he put together, which was information that we did not previously have on that family, which we are now going to add into the Pella Community Memory Database. So as people use this database, they think to themselves, what is it that I have that I can contribute? And in that way, this becomes a self-perpetuating project, which is exactly what we're trying to accomplish.